IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Hope you're all well and keeping safe. On the podcast today, we host Seema Misra, a writer and an artist, as she paints a beautiful picture of this remarkable place in the northeastern part of India. Let's hop onto the episode and find out where Seema is taking us to today. So with that introduction, we'd love to welcome Seema Misra, an artist, writer, urban sketcher, illustrator, and a listener of the podcast too. Seema, thank you so much for being on the Musafir Stories and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Saif. It's great to be here after listening to podcasts for so many months now. Thanks for that lovely introduction. Just to add a bit, I'm a writer. I work in the hospitality industry as well, and traveling is a passion of me and my husband, and we spend a lot of time traveling within India and sometimes outside as well.
Thank you, Seema. We are grateful to have lovely listeners like you who constantly listen and give feedback and share the podcast with your network, your friends and family. And a little tidbit for the listeners as well. Seema's husband, Tushar Shukla, was on the podcast not too long ago covering the wonderful itinerary on Indore and Ujjain. So that also makes Seema and Tushar the first couple to appear in separate episodes. I mean, we've had couples do episodes together in the past, but very glad that the two of you have had a chance to come with us. And like I said with Tushar, he is a multi-talented personality, and I think the same goes for you as well, Seema. A bunch of different things you do, and we'll definitely talk a little bit more on some of your interests during the course of the conversation. And thank you for that quick intro as well. In terms of the overall structure of the podcast, how we go about it, because you've been listening, you definitely have a good idea. So with that in mind, where do you want to take us today, Seema?
Today, I want to take you and all our listeners to beautiful Arunachal Pradesh. Imagine it's raining there. It's April. It's misty. There are high mountains, and there is a long road trip covering a variety of terrain, cultures, cuisine. It's going to transport you into a completely different world for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Really looking forward to that. And like you also set a little bit of context with the scenery and the ambience of what we are driving into. We are really looking forward to it. And for people who are listening to this for the first time, Arunachal is basically a state in the northeastern part of India and is known for its natural beauty as well as its rich cultural heritage. So really looking forward to exploring Arunachal with Seema. And Seema, just in terms of getting there and when is the time to visit, any guidance, any feedback?
So, Seth, the ideal time to visit there is actually the winter months are really good if you can handle the cold, because it's dry and there are a lot of festivals going around at that time, or post monsoon. Basically, from April onwards, sometimes the rain starts kicking in, and while monsoon in Arunachal Pradesh is very beautiful, it is also a time where there might be snags in your itinerary because of landslides, or you may not be able to trek or explore the terrain as much as you want, because the rains there can be quite heavy. And so I would just suggest to go during the dry months, be it summer or during the winter months, just to avoid the monsoon over there, peak monsoon that is.
Awesome. So we're looking at a good 10-11 day itinerary to explore this beautiful state. And I have to also mention that just in terms of options, Arunachal, even though you may feel that it is a or relatively smaller state in the Northeast, there's so much to do, right? I mean, just to give you a sense, we ourselves on the podcast have covered at least, I'd say, 3 other Arunachal itineraries, right? And all of them are vastly different. And obviously, what we're going to do today is also very different as well. So, a lot of options to explore. And if you have the time, you can certainly pick and choose what you'd like to do. Why don't you tell us, Seema, what your plan was and where you folks decided to start off?
So, Saif, we actually planned initially to see the rising sun. Arunachal is known as the land of rising sun, and I wanted to go to Anjar district and go up to this point where you can see the rising sun. And then we started our trip. We reached Dibrugarh, as I said, and we were welcomed by our travel professional. We set out from Dibrugarh. When you drive and you enter Arunachal Pradesh during the border crossing, state border crossing, you need an inner line permit. We had got this done through our travel professional. However, listeners can also go to the Arunachal Pradesh tourism website and apply for it themselves and get it. It's just a document stating which are the places that you want to go to. This is because Arunachal, like we know, it's a place where there are a lot of tribes. A lot of these tribes are protected. So because of this, you need the inner line permit when you travel through certain areas of Arunachal Pradesh. So after we crossed into Arunachal Pradesh, we went to the first city that we hit was Miao. Miao is a tiny little town, and its call to fame is that it's right next to this forest called Namdapha National Park. It's a very dense forest in Arunachal, and this reserve actually extends right into Burma. It's famous for its bird life, for its lush green forests, for the big cats, for lush vegetation, and you can do different types of treks through the place. We had booked a 1-day trek just to get a glimpse of the forest, but I believe that there are even up to 10-15 day treks through the entire forest. So we reached Miao, and in Miao there are several homestays and local stay options. We stayed at a place called Namdapha Jungle Camp, and it's owned by a local person called Mr. Fulpa Singpho. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correct. It's a very quaint place. All the rooms are on stilts, and Mr. Singpho himself is an avid bird watcher. So he gets a lot of Europeans and a lot of naturalists come and stay with him, since his knowledge of the jungle is so vast, and he's himself trekked and bird watched through the terrain. However, the very day we reached Miao, it started raining, and we were not very sure if we could not do the trek the next day. We set out to the forest the next day by car. It's a short 2-hour drive from Mr. Singpho's house, and when we reached there, the rain had kind of stopped, and we trekked up to a river, and then you have to do a river crossing on foot, and we couldn't do that because the water was too fast, and they were not sure whether we would be able to do the crossing. So instead, we just walked along the river bank, and it's extremely pristine. Like when we went, because of the rains, we were the only tourists there. There wasn't another single person there. There are no safaris in Namdapha National Park because it's not as popular as the national parks, maybe like Kanha or something like that. So you find it very pristine, even though you may not get to see the amount of wildlife or birds that you might want to, unless you really give it time, like you said, a couple of days, and you trek through the terrain. But even if you go for just 1 day, you'll be fascinated by the natural life there, because the trees are extremely old. They are huge trees. The river is very, very clean. You won't see like even a single plastic packet or anything fallen anywhere. You won't see much people around you as well. It's a place where it's very calm and very nice, and it was this pristine even on the outskirts of the forest up to the point we went. So I'm sure if people give it a day or two and they trek a bit into the forest, they will find it really refreshing, especially nature lovers who want to be disconnected from city life and just be by themselves in a very quiet and pristine place. So like you said, me and my husband, we both are like into creative pursuits. So I usually carry a small sketch kit with me wherever I go. It's like a small toilet bag filled with this tiny watercolor kit, a sketch pen, a couple of pens, ink pens, and my all my tools, and then I can just sit anywhere and make it into my art studio and sketch for a while. So basically, we spend the day sketching over there and reading books and just walking around and taking shelter when the rain would pick up, and then just exploring the river bank. And then there is a small dark bungalow there, like a colonial kind of a dark bungalow where you can have a simple meal. They'll probably make you like dal chawal and a sabji, and then you can drive back to Miao and wherever you are put up. So that was day 2.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, the perspective in which you're looking at it, right? Like thinking about sitting down, sketching these beautiful sights. I think that's brilliant, firstly, and I can only imagine how calming and peaceful it is to actually do that, right? And that's one thing. And I mean, yeah, I won't even talk about the creative pursuits of you and Tushar. I was really like mine was equal to blown moment for me, like all the things you do. So really glad that you got to spend some good time here. And I think it's also pretty underrated, right? The natural habitat of the eastern Himalayas, right? I think first thought that comes to mind is northeast forest tribes, beauty. For some reason, like Himalayas doesn't figure in that list for me.
No.
But it is pretty underrated, right? And it is a ecological hotspot as well, with the variety of flora and fauna that you mentioned for birders especially, right? So many different options. And having spent some time there, and you mentioned you also had a meal there. What is the plan next? Did you head back to the camp?
Yeah, so after finishing off at Namdapha jungle camp, about in the evening around 4 p.m., we came back, and on the way back we stopped at a local market. This is something that I did throughout my travel through Arunachal. I always visited the local vegetable market, or just a normal market where people go to buy their groceries, their vegetables, fruits, meat, because Arunachal, the food is so different that even though a vegetable market, normally you won't think of it as a place for tourists to visit, but if you go, you'll find the kind of vegetables, the spices, everything is very, very different. We stopped at the local vegetable market. We picked up some greens. I don't even know their names. And we just carried it back to the camp with us, and we asked our cook to make food with us, and he was even arguing with me that, okay, this is a bit dry, this you haven't bought properly, you should have checked for the freshness. But it was just fun thing to do for us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is the plan? You did touch upon there being some recalibration of the plans due to the weather. So
Yes,
what was planned now?
So we did all our shopping, came back home, and while we were having dinner, our travel professional comes up to us, and Bhikkhu tells us that, you know what, all the roads are blocked, and we are getting this, they have this, all the drivers have this whisper network where they send messages to each other, and he was like, there are going to be roadblocks all the way up there, and we might be stuck in the middle of nowhere. So we were like, you are the experts, tell us what we can do. And then very quickly, within 15 minutes, they came up with this entire alternate itinerary for us up to this point called Mechuka, high mountain desert landscape. Not really desert, but a high mountain valley kind of a landscape. And we were like, yeah, that's fine. I would much rather go somewhere else rather than be, stuck in the middle of nowhere because of a landslide and roads being blocked. So we just changed our entire itinerary, and Mechuka is at a very high altitude, almost 6,000 feet or something like that, and 6,000 feet above sea level. So we didn't have the right, even the winter wear and all that, but we were like, yeah, let's just try it out.
Okay, hats off to you and the travel advisor, or like whoever was taking you around,
Yeah.
right? Too. But yeah, let's go through with your journey and see what you guys saw along the way.
So now with this new itinerary, on our day 3, we set off from Miao, and the entire day was basically in the car on the road, and we did a couple of touristy things like the next city that we were going to stay overnight in was this hill station called Roing, and from Miao to Roing is ideally about 5 hours. So the thing to remember with Arunachal Pradesh is when you go on a Google map and you check the time to drive from here to there, it will show you 5 hours, but that 5 hours could easily be 10 hours. So we spent the entire day driving from Miao to Roing, and from Miao to Roing, on the way there are a lot of interesting spots that you can visit. The first one we stopped at was a Tibetan settlement about an hour and a half from Miao. We stopped in this Tibetan settlement, and there are 500 people there. They're all refugees who have been resettled around 1975, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's not too many eateries or anything like that, but the main point of interest here is there is a huge handicraft shop, and along with the shop there is a workshop where actually the weavers are sitting and weaving the carpets and all the bags and all the little things that we carry back with us. They're actually doing there. So you have this long room with about 10-12 people, and they have their Tibetan music playing, and they're all like weaving away, with those pedals and their hand movements. So you can just unobtrusively walk around, see how they are weaving, and then you can look at all the items. When we were there, they were really making like these huge carpets for, I think, one of the government offices in Delhi. So they were like really big pieces, and then there's a lot of knickknacks there for you to pick up for your gifts and your memorabilia. It's a nice place to spend an hour buying things, and then you're directly buying from the community, so it's nice that way as well.
Yeah, definitely. One of the many Tibetan refugee settlements that came up, right, after
Yes.
the Dalai Lama moved here. So I mean, moved here in the sense, moved to India from Tibet. And I
Yes.
was digging up some about this particular settlement as well. And this place is called, how do you pronounce the name again?
Choephelling.
Choephelling,
I think
right?
so. Choephelling,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, very interesting settlement, like basically a self-sufficient community. And that bit about carpet picking as well, right? Seema, apparently, like, that is one of the main contributors to their, like, the little economy of the settlement. And a lot of it also is exported. And was reading up an interesting article that there was apparently a little bit of a slide in terms of the production and even in terms of interest, right? The younger generation were not as keen in all of this. But apparently, like, some of the locals got together and invested in, like, this music you mentioned that they're hearing, right? They interested in setting up some music to basically shoot up productivity. And since then, like, both the production as well as the revenue and everything has also gone up, and like people take more and more interest in the workers, like who work there. They take more interest because like music basically boosts your morale as well as you're working, and you're also working in sync, so it doesn't really feel like work. So that story just came across as very interesting to me, so I thought I'd just share that with you.
Yeah, that's really nice to know. I didn't know this this background, but I'm glad that they're trying different things to entice the youth and keep people interested in this craft form. You need to make changes and make it appealing for people for sure to keep it going.
Yeah, exactly, because that's one of the challenges we see, right? And more of these art forms that have been carried on from centuries, really. But I'm glad that you had an opportunity to stop over the settlement as well, the Choephelling Tibetan refugee settlement camp. And what about from here, Seema?
From the settlement, we then drove on, and the next pit stop was the Golden Pagoda temple in Namsai. And the main point of attraction here is a Buddha statue which is 13 feet tall, and it's made entirely of bamboo. It's supposed to be one of the tallest in Asia, like a tallest statue made out of bamboo. And when you see this, when you see the Golden Pagoda temple, you actually find a very strong Burmese and far Asian touch in the kind of monuments you see around, the statues, the artwork, the way the roofs are structured. It has a very strong Burmese influence, and visitors there will find it to be a very different kind of a monastery from, say, the kind that you find in Spiti or Ladakh up there, in terms of the architecture. And the complex itself is sprawling with spread out temples and the main statue within a temple, of course. And the day we visited, there was very, very light showers, so the reds of the roof were reflecting in the water, and everything was green, and you could like carry a small umbrella. There's a light shower and you can just walk around, so there's absolutely no heat. There's a cool breeze, so it was quite charming for me to just walk through that place. Though I didn't get to interact much with any of the monks or spend too much time there. We were there for about an hour and a half, because we had to explore the Golden Pagoda temple and also have our meal close by, and then head on to the to Roing, so that we reach on time before it gets dark.
Yeah, I was really caught by surprise too with the Golden Pagoda. So it's not just the Golden Temple we have in Amritsar, or India doesn't have the Golden Temple in Amritsar, right? It also has the Golden Pagoda. So
yeah,
it's
true.
good to know about that. And yeah, to your point, it also has pretty unique architecture. Like, you don't see a lot of this, right, in India. And it's perhaps that Burmese influence that you were talking about too. Was the next stop basically Roing, or was there more stops along the way?
There was just the one last stop called BhismakNagar. BhismakNagar is actually this temple site, it's an archaeological site. It's the remains of a 12th century fort, and all you can see right now is like a gate, and then foundations made of brick stones, and like remains of some walls. But it's a very, very ancient site, and it was excavated by ASI, and they found a lot of pottery and things there, but it hasn't been maintained the way it should be. But it's just nice to stop here, because this site has a lot of relevance. It's supposed to be the oldest archaeological site, ASI site in the state. And also this fort palace is supposed to be Rukmini's father's palace as per mythology. So Krishna's wife, Rukmini, her father's palace. So it has those mythological and historical connections, and of course nice to see around. But unfortunately you don't have like an office there or some kind of maintenance work, so that someone can take you around and at least explain the meaning. There's a board by ASI where you can read the history of the place and just walk around by yourself and see the place. Maybe do some research beforehand so that you kind of know what you are expecting. We just landed up there, and then you don't have connectivity across Arunachal always, so we were struggling to find what is this actually. So maybe read up, go prepare yourself, and then enjoy the place.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, like I said, believed to be from around the 12th century, right? And I mean, no offense here. I tried just digging up. It's supposed to be one of the prominent kingdoms of the state or this region. It's spelled as Chutia, right? So,
yes.
I mean, I didn't want to offend anybody by pronouncing it, but I did look up, like, there's one of the prominent kingdoms from the region too, right? So
yes, it's a prominent site, but like as you said, Seth, Arunachal is not a place heavy on tourism,
right.
So things are not maintained like the way we would if we go into Hampi. Then of course everything is impeccably maintained. It's not like that. Maybe the tourism needs to catch up, but definitely a hidden beauty.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that you actually I mean, no pun, but you dug it out, basically, right? It happened to be on your way, and you dug in and found this out, but an archaeological site that definitely, if it's on the way, you can visit and find some of the remains and the ruins. And assuming it is rowing after this for the night,
Yes.
right?
After this long drive, just like you're in the car for another 2 to 3 hours, depending on how fast you drive, how good the roads are, whether you stop for tea or something. And then you reach Roing. Roing is like Arunachal's Shimla or Manali, without the crowd, without the shops. It's a very gentle, it has that very nice hill station vibe to it, gentle hills. There's this beautiful Sally Lake where all the locals and the tourists go. It's this huge lake in the middle of mountains and with a walking track all around it. So you can walk around Sally Lake. And then, of course, there are a lot of adventure sports to be done around Roing. If you plan to stay there for 2-3 days, then you can go for trekking, you can go for rafting, you can explore the jungles, you can stay in camps. We were in Roing for kind of a pit stop kind of a thing, so we were just there for one night. But you can definitely stay for 2 or 3 nights if you want to indulge in some adventure sports. Otherwise, it's a very gentle kind of a town to just go for those long walks and see the parks and see the river. There's a river running by Roing, and go to Lake Sally and then just explore the food around the place.
Yeah, definitely some of the pictures I saw too, it was very, very picturesque, like you're mentioning.
Yes.
And if somebody likes to, with all of these little lakes and boating or whatever adventure sport you're mentioning, those as well, it can be like a longer stopover if there's the opportunity for that. But I'm glad that this is another place you got to spend some time at. And basically, this is the route you're taking to get eventually to Mechuka, right? So all of these are little pit stops that you're spending time and checking out the places in the vicinity.
Yes. So between Roing and Mechuka, we had one last stop. It was a little town called Aalo, or it's also called Aalong. And this is the place where you have people from the Kalo tribe. And we were staying in a very authentic tribal home about 16 kilometers from Aalo town. And we actually stayed in Aalo for quite a while. We were there for 3 nights. And we stayed in this homestay called Bebom Homestay, which came very highly recommended by Nomad on Wheels. And for me, actually, even more than Mechuka, if I close my eyes, Arunachal Pradesh, I just see Bebom Homestay, because it was just like this wonderful surprise that I hadn't planned for. I didn't even expect it. It's owned by Mr. and Mrs. Gay Ori. They are the owners of Bebom Homestay, and he is a local person who has been maintaining his house in the very traditional way. He has 2 brothers, and his brothers have moved out to the city. They are in government jobs, and he's the one who stays home, and he maintains his house exactly like a heritage, not even heritage, it's an authentic Galo house. So like you said, it's built on stilts, but not just on stilts, Seth. The entire house is built with bamboo. The roof are made from leaves. The floor, everything is bamboo or wood that they have got from the jungle. And Mr. Gay has used some amount of concrete, because the rooms that he has built for guests are concrete rooms. And those stilts, the stilts that these houses stand on, they can't be placed directly on the ground. They need kind of a slab or a block to place on. So his house the stilts were built on concrete slabs. But when you walk in the village and you go even further into the older villages where modernization has not even hit that much, they actually build their houses on huge stones. These are like stones that they have found in the jungle and they have brought into the town. And I was speaking with Mr. Gay, and what he was saying is it takes almost 10-15 days to build these houses, and it's kind of a village work. Like everyone comes together and helps a person to go into the village for 2-3 days, cut the bamboo, because you have to go very deep to a place which is dry, from where you can cut the bamboo so that it won't be infested by termites. And then they have these particular time of the month, like on full moon nights you should cut the bamboo, so that if you cut it at this time from this place, then the termites won't infect. So with those strong old bamboo and some of the wood, that's how they build the foundation of their house. And then the house is like a square shaped central room, and all around it is like a veranda with seating. And when you go inside, there is at the center a small square kind of a earthen spot with a place to build fire. And then all around it is this wooden seating with carpets, like not carpets but mats woven with not palm leaves, but like a local leaf that they have. So people sit on that, and then there is the fire in the center, and on top of the fire is kind of a platform where they have their weaving baskets and everything kept there to dry with the fumes. And then into the fire they do their cooking. So they get these hollow bamboo, stuff it with like say chicken, pork mixed with bamboo shoot, and put it into the fire, and then that's their food. And that's where they all gather in the evening, sit together and eat. And that's where we would have all our 3 meals with the family. So it was almost like we got a glimpse of how a person in this village actually lives. So we would sit with Mr. Gay, his wife, and then his brothers would come in and they would all chat. And it's they make their own rice wine or rice beer. This is made from black rice, and it's so smooth and it's so tasty, Seth. They make it by burning black rice, and then they put it in a kind of a conical woven sieve with leaves around it. They ferment it, they strain it, and then it's a very clear, very smooth, easy to drink beverage, which you won't even feel how smooth it is. It's like very fine wine, and then you won't know when you get high because it hits you really hard. And for like we in North India or in the rest of India, when somebody comes home, we offer them chai or coffee. Yep. So in this tribe, they offer people this rice wine. It's a mark of honor. It's a mark of welcoming someone. So we were like family for them, and they would keep offering us apong. This drink is called apong. So they would keep offering us apong. They would keep offering us food. There was never any question that, I'm going to charge you this much for a drink or anything like that. We were just staying, like they just paid our whatever the rates for the night to stay there, and then everything, it was like we were staying in their home from morning tea to lunch to dinner. Everything we would have with them. And even their cuisine was so different. Like they would make, like I said, the chicken and everything would be roasted right in the fire inside the hollow bamboo, and then they would make this kind of a stew with bits of river fish and then different greens. Like they have this green leaf called lei. I think it's kind of a mustard green, which they bring in from the forest. So they forage or they grow these around their house, and they bring everything, boil it and serve it to you. So their local cuisine is very low on spices and masalas that India is famous for. So the curries and everything that you get, everything is white in color because they don't use turmeric. Instead, and they don't use much of tomatoes and or any kind of lemon as well. For fermenting, for that little tang and acidity, they actually use fermented bamboo shoots. So that gives a very different kind of a taste to the curries. And then again, the rice is also so different. It's not our typical basmati rice or Sona Masuri rice. It's the rice that they grow in their own fields. So the grains are a bit thicker and it has a slightly more nuttier taste to it. So the entire eating and the whole experience of staying there right from the first night was very magical to us. Like, imagine just sitting with them and they are chit-chatting with you. They want to know about your life, your views on politics. Their family joins in, you're drinking together. Then they share these stories of that we have forest spirits, and when we don't drive through the forest at night, if you are a pure soul, the spirits can sense it. If you have darkness in your soul, then they will keep you tied in the forest. Like they would tell you this kind of stories, and it was a lot of fun. That from that very first night in Aalo, it was really good for us. And then the next day we had an entire day with our homestay owners. So Mr. Gayori, he actually wanted to show us the Aalo town. So he took us into the town, and he wanted to show us his place of worship. So what he explained to me and Tushar was that they are not really Hindus. Their religion is called Doni Polo religion and Doni sun and moon religion, and they have a very small temple in Aalo, and they took us in there, and you don't have any idol of a deity or anything like that. You have a kind of a sun and moon kind of a representation to which they pray, and then they have a priest who blessed us, and he tied a small thread on our wrists, and then they showed us around the temple complex, and they also told us that this is where they have their famous Mopen festival when it happens, and then we again hit a local market with Mr. Kayori. So he wanted to buy some spices and some food for us. So we bought some of the leaves, like we bought these banana flowers, and they made a kind of soup out of it. And then we bought the leaves, and he showed us the different things available, like they have these small daggers that they carry. So you have these woven bamboo sheets to keep those daggers in, and then you get those necklaces and things there in the market, the hats, the bamboo woven hats that they wear. So you have stalls, people selling all these things. Then there was a stall where they had their local medicine, and this just looked like really large, maybe my palm sized white stones, but it was made of some kind of sugar and some things mixed, and he said this is our local medicine. So I can say for sure that Arunachal is very fascinating, and when you spend time there you will realize how different and unique it is. Even within their own state they have 28 tribes, and then each of these 28 tribes they have over like 100 sub-tribes, I believe, and everything has a special meaning for them. For example, they wear these kind of skirt kind of things which are their local attire, and there are different patterns of weaving on that which indicate which tribe you belong to. Or a necklace you wear, the color of the thread in that necklace indicates which tribe or sub-tribe you belong to. So we found a lot of intricacies there as we walked through the market and explored the place with Mr. Gay. So it was very interesting for us. Again, a river runs through Aalo town, so we walked by the river. There is a suspension bridge there as well. You can go and explore those points. And even though the Doni Polo temple is not really a tourist spot, but of course you can always go there and explore the place, and maybe go with a local so that you can actually go inside and understand with them what the place is all about, and how they worship nature. And for them nature is everything, so their connection with the jungle is very strong. Everything they get from there, they forage for food from there, the home they build, everything is from there. So they are quite strongly connected to nature and the forest around them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I'm so glad about, Seema, is that listening to like all your experiences here, right? It barely sounds like part of an itinerary than part of stopover that you're doing. It almost sounds like you've visited a relative, right? Your Masi or your Chachu or whoever, and you're living with them, because a lot of the things you're doing as well as a part of the experience for these 2 or 3 days is because things we do when we are visiting family, right? Glad that this was such an authentic experience for you as well, right? Like you said, it's slowly losing out as we move towards the city. So overall, I would definitely rate this as one of the more fulfilling experiences that you've had so far? Obviously, you've done a bunch of very different things, so I'm not saying or trying to compare, but anything else from your stay at Aalo that you'd like to add, Seema?
Just one more thing, Seth. I observed this really interesting thing in Aalong, that anybody who has a bigger house like Mr. K had, what they do is somewhere near their gate they build these spaces. Like he had a small room on stilts where people walking by they can just climb up there and rest if they want a breather, or if it's raining they can take shelter. And then within his property he had another. Like, of course, there are no boundary walls or demarcations between properties, but like within his space, he also had another small room, and that's where all the kids would gather to, play, or like if they're doing a dance or something, they can practice there. So this community feeling over there was quite strong, and people are very welcoming to each other. Like even when you are sitting with them, you keep saying in the morning during breakfast, or even at night, people keep coming in, going out, stopping by, they'll say hello. And the way they build their houses, everything, there is a lot of place to just sit and chit chat, and places that are shared by everyone, like anyone can come in. So it was quite interesting to see that as well.
Yeah, like the feeling I get is they're pretty strong on the community bit, right? From all of the things that you've been mentioning. And I mean, especially in such remote areas, you need that, right? Like you mentioned, it's hard conditions they live in, and also very cut off. And I think I was reading somewhere that this is also like has the least population density also among the cities or populated places in India. So you do need that sense of community, and I'm glad that you had a chance to see some of those bits closely also. Again, if it's like too much of a touristy type of an itinerary, you miss out on subtle things like these, right? You don't really catch quite a bit of these if you're living in a hotel or a resort or anything like that. So I know the Dong Valley trip, right? I think that's the sunrise point that you were planning on. I know that is also very kind of enticing and interesting to go to, but things worked out well for you, and then
extremely well, actually. I mean, three things followed us throughout this trip: rivers, lakes, and then rain. And initially, I'm quite honest, initially I was quite depressed because I'm traveling like almost after 2 years of pandemic, and I'm so excited to go somewhere far away, and then it's raining, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do anything here. But actually, because of the rain, I ended up doing very, very non-touristy things, which brought me a lot more satisfaction and joy. Like, I spent an entire morning walking around the village and sketching the houses. And then I even sent my sketch back to Mr. Gay, and he was so happy. Like, I was able to connect with people more because I spent time with them instead of going to touristy places where you're just clicking snaps and then going through a museum. Or instead of that, it was very slow and interactive, which was a different kind of enjoyment for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were making pictures, and you were making memories in your own way, right? Like by sketching those, these are etched for much, much more longer than just being a post or reel or Instagram.
Yeah, so true. You get it completely.
So I'm glad you got to do that. And just because you mentioned, right, the way the districts are also set up in Arunachal, right? Everything is like east and west. East Dibang, West Dibang, Upper Siang. I think a lot of it also driven by the rivers, right? Basically the rivers, the places. So that way also has found it pretty fascinating. The districts have been named after whether they're on the east side or the west side of the river and stuff like that. So yeah, very interesting place, very cut off, but very interesting. And also the other piece also, Seema, that we don't touch upon a lot is politically or from a World War perspective. Also, Arunachal has some very interesting stories tied to them. Like, I think a road was built through Arunachal to connect it to Burma and then to China, because all of the sea routes have been cut off during World War II, etc. So that was interesting. And then obviously we have the history with the Indochina War, right? What is it, 60 to
Yes.
65, I forget. But that also, like, there are a lot of people who literally were martyred here in this part of the country. So things like that don't get called out much, but yeah, it has a fascinating history too. So we'll certainly try to bring another episode in the future covering some of those aspects of this wonderful state. But yeah, no, I speak a lot, but Seema, I'll give it back to you. Where were you headed to from here?
Yeah, no, you are right, Seth. There is a lot of layers to Arunachal, and unless you spend like a month or something there in one trip to explore everything, is quite challenging. So I'm sure you're going to have more speakers and more facets of Arunachal coming through in the coming months.
Yeah.
But onto my journey next was finally our final stop, Mechuka. So we set out early in the morning. Like, the most arduous bit of our drive was from Aalo to Mechuka, which was almost, we started at 7 in the morning, and by the time we reached, I think it was around 4:35 in the evening. And finally, after this 8-hour long drive, we finally reached Mechuka. As you come into Mechuka, it really does steal your breath away, like that picture perfect beauty, or that very beautiful Himalayan view that you think of when you think of like the Kashmir or the Shimla, like going up Mashobra, Spiti, that not Spiti but Mashobra, that side where you have those fir trees, you have that beautiful lake, you have those green slopes, you have all that in Mechuka. So you're surrounded by high mountains all around you, and there's a valley, a plain green valley in the middle with a very beautiful Yargapchu river running through it, which is almost like between blue, light blue, deep blue, depending on the sun. So it was very, very charming. As soon as we reached, and we were staying in a homestay called Yargapchu Homestay, but there are many places around Mechuka to stay. Yargapchu Homestay was walkable distance to the river, and then you can cross the river, and there are again mountains, and you can walk around there. So it was quite a peaceful spot for us to walk around and explore. And as soon as we reached, there was still light enough for us to go for a short walk, and it was drizzling. So we went for the walk, and the river runs through the valley, so we were staying near the river. We crossed over to the other side where you have the mountain slope, and you can even climb up to the peak of these mountains, and that's quite a hike, but we just wanted to explore. And as we are walking, it's raining, and me and Tushar are chatting that, are we even going to be able to trek all the way up, because I'm not that strong a trekker in terms of through tough terrain like slippery roads and all, so I was not sure whether I wanted to try it. And then we see like so many of the locals, they just having these jars, and they are bending down and collecting something from the ground. We cannot make out what is it that they are collecting, and it's also drizzling, and I'm very curious. Finally I go and see, and it's like on both sides of the road it's covered with green, so it's like a green carpet because it's monsoon, so you don't see any of the brown desert kind of mountain surface. And then there are these tiny strawberries, like minuscule strawberries, as big as your nail, even smaller than that, and they're all collecting it and putting it in jars and bringing it back home with them. So even we ended up collecting some of them and eating them, and it was so much fun. And it's not even something you will see anywhere, but foraging is something very, very strong in Arunachal. In Aalong we saw that anywhere that is a bit pristine, but far from the city, people forage. They put this basket on their back and they go into the nearest mountain slope, and they forage for mushrooms, for different kinds of leaves. So they don't just rely on palak or methi like we do in the cities. They go into the forest, they pick different kinds of leaves, and I found out to my joy that they pick these little tiny strawberries, mostly the kids, and they put it in these glass jam jars, and I think they go home and then they put some sugar and they shake it and try to make a drink out of it. But it was quite fun, Seth, that I can say for sure. So again, though we were upset by the rain, we saw these other things which were very delightful.
Yeah, no, so I mean, yeah, one option is you could just be bummed and depressed about it and just spend the time indoors, or you can get out, take a little bit of a risk of walking around in the rain, and then stumble upon some really like memories, right? That you would pretty much, I guess, take with you to the grave.
For
So
sure.
yeah, and were there any other places within Mechuka that you perhaps stopped by or paid a visit to?
Yeah, there are a few spots in Menchuka that you can try. There's a Gurudwara up in the mountains, so definitely going to the Gurudwara and having the langar there is one of the the nicest experiences there. There is also a small cave there with some history around it, some local legends around it. The river Yargapchu, you see it up close. Again, this one of not the starting point, but kind of you see another aspect of it before it enters the valley. And there's a very old 400-year-old Buddhist monastery there. This is, I think, the Mahayana Buddhism monastery. So you have like the Tarama pictures, and I found it very similar to the kind of monasteries that I had seen in Spiti. And I think this is a tradition that comes in from Tibet, so the practices there are very similar, and it was very, very different from the kind of monastery that the Golden Pagoda, that
Right.
monastery was. So that is another thing to do in Menchuka. Then there is a army base there, and there are a couple of bridges running across the Yargapchu river in the valley, so you can walk across those. And then there are some local shops where you can buy woolens or Tibetan trinkets. There are a lot of very nice shops where you can have momos over there or thukpa. And of course you can trek up the Menchuka mountain, and right on the top they have the words Menchuka written there. So like it's a nice one-day trek that you can do if the weather supports you. We were there in Menchuka for about again 3 days, and we took it very leisurely exploring. There's also this spot where they take you and they show you the bunkers where the army would hide. They had built these bunkers, so you can walk up and see those little spots, and you can spend some time in nature. Again, Yargapchu homestay was it was a proper homestay with the people running it, living there themselves. So again, the meals would be in the kitchen with them, and those were some of the really nice memories I have. Like they had a separate dining hall with a fireplace for guests, but because we were the only guests there, and I always like to eat with the family, so I would eat with them because then the fire is there and the warmth is there. And one day I saw the lady of the house. She was cooking something for her kids, and it looked really tasty. So I asked her for a bit, and she gave me, and it was this handmade noodles. So in Yargapchu, the Tibetans the Tibetan community who come there, they make this buckwheat noodle. So like we make atta for roti, so they make the dough and then they roll it and make the noodles instantly in front of you with buckwheat. And then they boil it and they just stir fry it with mushrooms and greens that they have foraged from the mountains. And the greens taste peppery. The noodles taste very different because it's instant. It's like rolled by hand and cut up right in front of you and boiled. So that thing was very, very tasty for me. They call the noodles puka, I think. Puka or puka, something like that. And it's a thing that the Tibetans there do. So that was quite a interesting
very
meal
interesting.
for
I'm
them.
telling you right now,
Yeah.
if Faiza was recording today, I would have probably had tried this for lunch or dinner today, because as soon as she's crazy about different types of noodles, so if she hears that something can be made handmade and with buckwheat, she probably would have tried to create something similar even if all of those things were not available.
True. I'm glad that you and your wife appreciate these little experiences too. I mean, they're not touristy. They are very simple. In fact, they were not even offering that food to us because they make like roast chicken and roast pork for their guests. But for me, it's these simple things that actually appeal to me. And again, because of the rain and the cold outside, we would sit with them so much. And then again, because of that, we would chit chat and see these new aspects of life there, which was quite interesting. So yeah, that was our 3 day in Mechuka with lot of sketching, lot of eating, and relaxing there. Like I can still remember the smells of everything. Like the water you get is heated over a wood fire, so it tastes and smells different. Sitting around the wood fire, the smell of wood burning and the food cooked on that, it tastes so nice. And just the joy of you're sitting in the kitchen with this fire in the center, and then somebody is cooking and you have it fresh with them. It's just so nice and such a warm experience to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad that you had all of these different experiences, Seema. Anything else as we start to wrap up the episode? Any other things you'd like to call out and mention? And I'll do a little self-plug. Like I said, there's an episode we did purely on Mechuka, so somebody who's looking for a further detailed itinerary there, certainly check that out. But anything from your side, Seema?
No, Saif, this is pretty much my experience of Mechuka, and definitely you can look into a detailed itinerary for the place as well. And then after Mechuka, it was our return journey back. And just a tip is, like, of course, when you're doing a round trip, on the way back, you could stay in a different place to just get a chance to see a different terrain. Maybe not very different, but just something else. So Pasighat was our last stop, and after a kind of relaxed stay in Arbor Jungle Camp, on the last day we woke up, and then from Pasighat, Dibrugarh airport is just a quick 3-hour drive. So we had an afternoon flight, and we were easily able to reach on time, stopping en route to pick up some tea on the way, and we were done with our Arunachal Pradesh itinerary.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey, and obviously it's been a lot of ups and downs, right? I can imagine emotionally as well. I mean, not talking about the terrain here, but I'm so glad that it turned out to be a wonderful experience and journey at the end.
Yeah.
I get a feeling that there is another Arunachal trip remaining for you guys, right?
Definitely. In fact, we've listened to a lot of people speaking about the Seven Sisters on your podcast. Like I remember Utsav Mamoria's Sikkim episode, and then there was one about this speaker who was lost in a cave in Arunachal. So, and I think I recently heard an itinerary as well. I think it was in Mizoram. I'm not sure. Yeah, Mizoram, right? So I keep hearing about the Seven Sisters a lot on your podcast, and I see posts on YouTube or on Travel and Leisure, and I think it's a very upcoming among travel enthusiasts. It's something that is coming up a lot now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you give me a good idea. I should probably make a playlist of all the Seven Sister episodes we have done. But I'd like to thank you, Seema, for giving us another of these memorable Northeast itineraries, memorable Arunachal itineraries, just giving us a glimpse into this beautiful state, what one can experience, and just the variety of things one can experience. So thank you so much for that. And hopefully we can in the future bring you back as well, Seema. If this has been a good experience and if you've liked it, you're always more than welcome to come back and share your experiences in the itineraries. So thank you, Seema.
Thank you.
That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.